Good evening and happy Monday, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. I am feeling great because at this time last week it was about 50 degrees colder, maybe even 60 degrees colder. We've had a massive temperature swing, a little bit of what I like to call fool's spring creeping in on us this February. And speaking of fools, if you're not ready for a little bit of Catholic insider baseball here, then you should probably just go ahead and turn the stream off right now because I have a rant about something that I am dealing with. Mark says he has no sound. Can anybody else verify that? Because if I'm just talking into the wind here, then that's no good. Ixnod, that's very unhelpful. Who is it? Who do you mean by you? Okay, Sally's got sound. Alrighty. So, I want you to put your mind back into the late 60s and imagine that you're a Catholic priest here. And this is what you get to work with in your Roman Missal here. Let's see if we can. Yeah, here we go. That's looking good right there. So this is what your Roman Missal looks like. We got a lot of Latin text here, and let's imagine that we're celebrating the feast of Saint Angel the Apostle on the 30th of November. That one's real easy, right? Because it just puts everything you need in there. You've got your introit, antiphon, your prayer, your epistle. Whoops, turn the page. Yeah, your epistle. You've got your gradual. You've got your gospel reading, your offertory antiphon, your secret prayer, your communion antiphon, your post communion. You've got that all laid out for you very nicely and easily. So that's a real easy day. You just do everything that's written there. But then we come over to the 2nd of December here. 2nd of December, we've got the feast of Saint Bibiana, right? Virgin and martyr there. And you see that you don't have everything that you need. You only have, well, I am not accustomed to how Internet Archive works, so you'll have to excuse me, but it was $0 to get this up on the screen. So we're looking over here. You see, you've only got 3 of the pieces you need to say Mass. And so what the book tells you to do is it tells you to go somewhere else. You can get the Mass Me Expectaverunt from the Common of Virgins. Number 2, location number 31. It's really well laid out. You just find the one that says 31, and that gives you for all of the other things that you need there. So what's the point of this? The point of this is that when you needed to find the other texts for the Mass, you just went to the one that they told you about. You didn't have to go and pick it for yourself. Now, when we get to the new Roman Missal, right here, we've got the Common of Doctors of the Church, right? So this is where you might be sent. And as you can see, not only do we have Mass number 1 here, but you also have the option, if you're the main celebrant, to pick Mass number 2. You can do that. And you could imagine this being something that people would be really interested in the 60s because, oh, the main celebrant now has more freedom, and that book isn't just telling him exactly what to do there. And I thought the same thing too when I was first ordained, that having the freedom, let's say on the feast of St. Thomas Aquinas, to choose between Mass number 1 and the texts that we have there, Mass number 2 would actually help keep things out, make things good, make things better. But that's not the way that it ended up working out. First off, most of the time, I didn't want to try and bother with picking a Mass, on the feast of St. Thomas Aquinas on January 28th. I don't want to think about which of these 2 I'm going to pick. And as it turns out, I'm not the only one that thinks that way. So with especially these entrance antiphons and these communion antiphons, the way they're commonly done in the parish is that there will be little missals in the pews, spelled with an A. So not the missiles that blow people up. They're little booklets that will have these texts in there for the lay faithful to recite the entrance antiphon and the communion antiphon along with the celebrant during a daily mass. And guess what the publishers of those missals do? They always pick the first option, right? So we can come over here and we can open up iBreviary here. Uh, and when we've got the Common of Doctors of the Church for the entrance antiphon, uh, wow, this is actually, they do actually put both of them here in the iBreviary. But when you, I should have looked a little more closely, but when you actually get the ones in the books, uh, they always go with option number one. And because I don't want to try and confuse people or not encourage them to recite these prayers along, there's a common custom in basically every parish I've been to that people have the option of reciting along with the entrance antiphon and the communion antiphon. I never use anything but option number one. I never use anything but option number one. And so we're right back to where we started, where we didn't really need those extra options. They were kind of useless. And so this is just kind of maybe a very common pattern that you can see, something that can happen all the time if we're not careful. Is that somebody will come up with a bright idea to fix a problem that isn't really a problem and doesn't actually fix a problem. In fact, it just ends up confusing people and not making anything better. So many such complaints do I have against the new missile and some of the bright ideas that we have in it that are not in, just as far as I could tell, not really all that necessary. So the StreamYard link is ready to go. Yeah, Mark is really enthusiastic at the prospect of the Pope targeting people with missiles and complicated rules and jargon. Imagine my shock. Everybody's got to have their jargon. It's good for a group to have their jargon there. Yeah, and then yeah, just jargon that you were familiar with never seems that way to you. No, Sally. No, Sally. The letters that are in red are there to make sure that the priest doesn't do things he's not supposed to. And so it actually serves as a binding, on the priest there. And it looks like Mark is picking up the point of this broadcast is that freedom is bad for you. I guess what I would say is that I didn't really need freedom there. I didn't really need freedom in that in this particular part of my job, and not having freedom is in this particular part of my job is actually a lot better for me because you do actually have 3 days which you can pick what feast day you're going to do. So that's pretty cool. Uh, I mean, you could wing it like with a Billy Graham knockoff from a pamphlet and dream you had backed up a few verses plucked out of Luke. No red letters needed. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. Red letters are required to denote those fallen women. This is a different type of red letter there. I didn't even get into how women sneak in preaching before music, Mark. Well, good thing that Mark is here and he can explain it for himself if he ever turned into anything other than a black box. And jargon is brain diabetes? No, jargon is just getting things quickly between people who need it. Now, if you're replacing jargon with thought, then that's a sign of brain diabetes. But yeah, no, used properly, jargon just speeds things up between professionals. Mark, what's up?
Hello, Father. I have to use my phone for bandwidth, so hopefully it's okay. Probably no video.
You're on the road right now.
Yeah, I'm in Florida.
What
Just
fun.
for just we're leaving. Like, yeah, we came, we saw, we conquered. Now we're going back home tomorrow at some point. So yeah, I yeah. Like people are always talking about jargon. Jargon is what keeps you out of domicide. It's the language that you use with your community that when somebody comes along and doesn't understand it, you think they're stupid. It's like, no, that's your jargon.
I tried to, I mean, I didn't just show you guys the pages and say, and now you can see my argument. I went and did a little bit of work to explain it. Looks like RJ accepts the distinction, so that's useful. Yeah, and Mark has trip internet, or maybe even trippy internet. So, and I have no idea what's going on. Okay, jargon sounds like some Fed woo-ha term to trick you. Listen up, Sally. You were in the army, and nobody does jargon quite like the army because it's usually just 3 or 4 letters said together very quickly. Like we're going to go down to the BX, and then we're going to PCS on out of here. Uh, except for Mark, who's on TDY. Like, so don't tell me about how all this jargon's just some Fed woo-ha term to trick me, because the army does that all the time. Yeah, I mean, jargon can be wielded against people, and so can a fire extinguisher. So we just gotta deal with life as it comes to us.
And anything can be wielded against people. This is like the worst argument anyone's ever made. Yes, people are agents of the world, and anything that can be done by people. This is not an interesting fact of the universe. This is what happens.
Ixton says that jargon is what happens when you throw away the jam container.
He is correct. That is true.
But Sally says that the army is a Fed anyway, so not disproven. I guess that's a fair enough point. Fair enough point. Oh, yeah. So anyway, that's what you guys' takeaway, huh? Is that the Catholic Church has its own jargon? And Mark, you're unusually not talkative tonight. I don't know how this stream's going to work. Maybe one of the other plebes can come inside the chat room and fill up the space that Mark is leaving. Okay, Sally got it. More choices do not help. Yeah, unless your problem is not having enough choices, then more choices do not help. Right. Guess we're gonna carry this stream on my back here tonight. Yeah, it's kind of like that ice cream shop paralysis that you can fall into. Well, Fed, I recognize. Wuha must be a West River thing. Oh goodness, yeah, yeah. North Dakota and South Dakota should have been split into East and West Dakota. They would be much better governed that way. I've got a lot more in common with people in Sioux Falls than I do with people in Bismarck or even Jamestown. So,
But there's also jargon for like ranchers and farmers, and they just don't think what they do is jargon, but it is.
right, because they've already gone through the education to figure out what the jargon is and how it works. And then once you speak the language, you don't have to think about it. Just like
Right.
how I
Language
don't have
you
to think
don't
about the
understand is jargon.
right. So anyway, priests have jargon too.
Yeah, you need jargon. That's how you communicate with the people in your tribe.
It's like when you wiggle your hands to get the cattle to look where you want. That's unfamiliar to me. I'll just have to say that I've not spent enough time around cattle to uh do that. Hello, Ron. Good to see you. Go ahead and hop on in.
Yep.
The link is posted. Not talking about anything
He's talking
important
about
right now.
dessert. Yeah, he's talking about dessert, Jello. That's dessert. It's good for your nails and hair.
You further elucidate jargon being useful as compared to, say, a cruddy news article using it to enchant you versus when it adds clarity in, say, community. Well, that's exactly right. So I could just start bringing in a whole bunch of canon law terms and use it very quickly on this live stream where in all odds I would be the only one to know what I'm talking about and try and use that to impress you with my intelligence. I could try and do something like that. But that's dumb and I don't think it would work. I think it would just make me look like a jerk. Whereas if I'm talking to our chancellor or our judicial vicar about something that's directly related to the work that we're engaged in, then talking about how, this is a probable 1095-2 on the respondent, um, that'll just communicate a lot of information very quickly to everybody there. And yeah, so it's mostly just a way of condensing important to use concepts into simple phrases or words that can speed things up, right? So um that's that's it. I don't know. That seems like common sense to me, but now I've said it out loud.
Yeah, it's an individualistic middle out thinking frame, right? Because everybody has jargon. And what that means is that you're using jargon to everybody else, but because you're only looking from your own perspective and never considering a perspective outside your own, you think there's such a thing as jargon. But actually, there isn't. It's just the speech you use in your community that's already meaningful there. And it's not your fault if somebody doesn't understand it. Like that just means they're limited. It doesn't, people always use it as a weapon against other people rather than realizing that it's a weapon that everybody wields equally.
Yeah, and maybe if somebody is trying to give a presentation for a large audience or a mixed audience, and they're very deeply ensconced in their own community, they might need to be reminded to, either keep it light on the jargon or make sure that they explain any of the terms that might be unfamiliar to the audience. So it's useful to have a word that reminds people that this is a thing, and just going out there and communicating as if you were communicating to people who already know what you're talking about isn't necessarily going to be useful. But yeah, no, it's inevitable if you've got any kind of a common a group gathered around a common interest or task, they're going to come up with more efficient ways to communicate with each other.
Yeah, and special terms for things that are only relevant to them.
Yeah.
And people don't sort of appreciate he does that. And so jargon is bad in their mind because they don't understand it. And when you say jargon, you're just admitting your ignorance. You're not actually doing anything else. But if they're blaming the victim. They're blaming the victim, right? They're like, oh, they're using jargon. It's like, no, you're the idiot. They're just speaking to their tribe, and maybe you can't understand them when they speak to their tribe. But it goes right back to the language problem. It goes back to this whole thing about, when certain people say emanation, they're not talking about the same thing as Anglo-Catholics would understand emanation, right? And likewise, the Protestants don't understand emanation the way the Anglo-Catholics do, right? Like they're using the same words, but they're using them as jargon, because jargon is usually a word that already exists that's being used special. It didn't used to be used that way, by the way. Jargon used to be used for made up words effectively, right? And it's no longer used that way. Now they're just saying, well, I don't understand how he's talking about this thing, and therefore it's jargon. It's like, well, no, that just means you're dumb. That's all it means. And maybe you could educate yourself up. Of course, maybe you can't. And that's actually where it's important to understand. Like, this is an indictment of your ignorance. This is not a statement of any import, right? That's
Yeah, yeah.
language. We can't all share the same language in the way people imply that we can, because it's just not technically possible.
Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty helpful. Um, Sally Joe was just pointing out how strange the whole Catholic Church looks from the outside, and hoping it would inspire some assistance in bridging the gap. I mean, the thing is that this wouldn't be something I would even expect most Catholics to understand, because most Catholics don't have to deal with the Roman Missal in either of its versions. So this is like me complaining as a priest, and if I was speaking to another priest, I'd be able to explain it much more quickly, because we all use the same thing. But just to kind of make the point about somebody's bright idea to give people options where they aren't needed. Yeah. And I thought the much sadder version about how the non-Catholics pick sermons made that clear. Well, we're talking about jargon now. That's where we're at. All right. Some of us have to ask the dumb questions to get the smart answers. I'll take the hit. Godspeed you, RJ. And Sally. Sally is apparently encouraging people into the dumb questions club. Yeah. Very good. I'm pretty sure Mark was dropping in and out. I let him know. So this is an opportunity for anybody who's scared of Mark to hop into the chat and begin to talk, because I've got very little patience for sitting around and talking to myself. Yeah, things are going pretty well. I keep on. So on March 20th, we are dedicating another church, right? I did this last year in October, and it's a great celebration. It's also a great amount of work. It's a great lot of work for me personally, because I'm in charge of seeing to it that the liturgy goes smoothly, and for like the past 3 out of the past 4 nights, I've had dreams about the dedication mass not going smoothly. So I'm taking that as a hint from my subconscious that I should start working on it some more. They're going to continually bring it up over and over again. So apparently, I'm stressed out about that, but I don't actually feel stressed about it. So that's pretty special to deal with that. But the bishop's out of town right now, so I've got all of the free time I need in order to rest and recuperate there. We've got Lent coming up, and another topic I thought about ranting about before this one was one of the cool features of the old calendars to give you ready, set, go before Lent starts. In the new calendar, Lent always begins on Ash Wednesday, as it does on the old calendar, and the Sunday before Ash Wednesday on the new calendar is always one Sunday of ordinary time. This year it'll be the eighth Sunday of ordinary time. Um, One of the cool features of the old calendar is that you had the 3 Sundays prior to Ash Wednesday: Septuagesima Sunday, Sexagesima Sunday, and Quinquagesima Sunday. Those are kind of like pre-Lent Sundays. You're already wearing the violet vestments, and the liturgy takes on a somewhat more somber and penitential tone. And kind of the great advantage of that is that Lent doesn't um, sneak up on you if you do that. So, yeah, that's what I would say. Where would you recommend ordering Catholic calendars from? There's a lot of good options. Goodness, let's just go shopping right now. Let me see if I can find something. This is going to be where your search engine optimization is really going to come into. Yeah, this one should be good. The Catholic Company. Doesn't that sound good? Let's go ahead and get this up on the screen so you guys can hear something other than me talking. There we go. The Catholic Company. Time of year to start thinking about it. Uh, Rosaries, home goods, jewelry. You got to have a calendar here. Let's go. You've got the Memento Mori perpetual desk calendar. That's pretty awesome. A year with Theophilia icons, 2025 Catholic liturgical calendar. Uh, let's see, so bad, but they don't really get me all that excited about. We've got mousepad calendars. Yeah, Sally, I think you're just one Google search away from finding a suitable Catholic calendar. So if it looks funny, just send me a DM and I'll take a look at it. I haven't decided what I'm giving up for Lent this year. I think I need to schedule some mortification, some time with my spiritual director to go over that, come up with something that's going to be useful and attainable, because you don't want to over or underdo it. Do modern people understand mortification? Yes, they just don't use that term. I suppose more pointedly, how do you explain something like fasting to a person who's never considered it? Send them like a Joe Rogan podcast or something, or one of these right-wing health nuts who are all rediscovering all of the all of those stuff there. So yeah, I think you have to explain mortification to people, especially if they're really locked into a materialist worldview with reference to things like dopamine and cleaning all that stuff up and cleaning all that stuff out. Um, so that'd be a decent way to start, like a fitness bro or a nutrition bro or lifestyle things. They all are attaining to at least a introductory level of understanding of mortification. They can't, of course, from that perspective, begin to understand how that can be a participation in the passion of Christ. Um, so that would be a limitation of starting off with the fitness pro and trying to work up. But everybody's got to start somewhere. So yeah, I would say talk about it from a health perspective first, both physical and mental health, and see if you can get anywhere with that. So I just got to find one that won't alarm my relatives. I'll have to keep it upstairs. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that most Catholic calendars are very art heavy. That one right there wouldn't really be all that suitable for you because it's got the monastery calendar on it rather than the general Catholic calendar that all your Catholic friends would be following. Oh, it's your sister's birthday, zealots, then, David. Well, wish her a happy birthday. And yeah, that's right. Hit the like button. Otherwise, you're excommunicated. Traditional wisdom, tradition seeking autophagy for healing. That must be some way of trying to describe mortification to modern people. Yeah. So anyway, Lent's coming up. You know, I'll tell you what I'm going to focus on for Lent, and that's not spending so much time on the computer because, oh darn it all, if I can't just waste a couple hours every day of my life watching stuff on YouTube, that doesn't make my life better uh, at all. So that's uh, that's what we're dealing with here. So that'll be probably the focus is, and that's probably gonna be a perennial focus for me. Ended up forming bad habits in my youth, and now we get to deal with them. I've not read any good laws about artillery or howitzers or mortars or anything like that. I did. I do now serve as defender of the bond for our tribunal, and I got special permission from the Vatican to do that without the requisite degree. So that's been interesting work to get started on. And I also, our chancellor was really busy last week, and a respondent on a case kind of decided suddenly to participate when previously she hadn't, and he didn't have time to schedule a deposition with her. So I got to take that deposition, and I haven't done that in a while. And there's nothing like a deposition in an annulment case to remind you of how good you've got it, because nobody comes to the tribunal with good news. So perennialism, it's not perennialism. There's just certain bits of wisdom that are available through the light of natural reason. But grace and truth come through Jesus Christ. So, how about that? Well, I've grown weary of speaking to myself. So, if we don't get a little bit of action in here in a couple of minutes, I might just call it. And, Mark seems to be having trouble with his internet, and so do the rest of you. So, uh, you know, we can keep the lights on for a little bit, but at a certain point, might be time to move on. Alrighty, folks. Well, sometimes you catch a lot of fish, and sometimes you don't even get a nibble. But thanks for listening, and I guess I'll see you all uh, next week. Like and subscribe or be excommunicated. There you go. Uh, Remains mom time, where I'd ask more Baptist. Well, yeah, your child is definitely more important than I am. So, with that, I'll let you guys go attend to more important things. Good night, and God bless you all.